Greetings, Ad Age Insiders. I'm back with another marketing story you need to know. It's March 6th, and this week, what brands want from their agencies and how agencies can win in the current new business marketplace. This is Ad Age Insider, where I'm taking you behind the scenes of the industry's biggest stories with the reporters who actually wrote them. I'm your host, Parker Heron. Make sure to hit like and follow wherever you're watching right now so you're never behind on industry news. So I think it's an understatement to say that a lot has changed pretty rapidly in the business landscape. Over the past year, the government has introduced new forms of economic volatility for businesses, AI has totally transformed workflows, and the ad industry has been shaken up by mega mergers. All of those elements have led to a higher number of account reviews in the first few months of the year. So, among all of that, how can agencies stand out when they're pitching a brand's business? And what are clients actually looking for that agencies can tailor that pitch to? This week, I'm here with senior agency reporter Brian Bonilla to break it all down and give you the checklist you need to know to win that new business. So keep watching. Brian, it is an honor to be in your presence today.
I mean, it's more of my honor than yours, but yeah.
No, I don't believe it. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today because you wrote an amazing story just a week or two ago where you talked to, was it more than 10 people who are
Yeah.
kind of all circling account reviews, consultancies, executives, brand leaders, etc., about like what's going on in the new business market. And I thought some really amazing takeaways. So I'm going to grill you on it.
Yeah, let's do it. Awesome.
Okay, ready to rumble. So I want to start like basics. Let's set the scene. Like I said, this is about account reviews in the new business market. What are you seeing right now in the current new business marketplace, or what are you hearing is going on in the new business marketplace that may be different than recent years?
Yeah, the inspiration for the story was really inspired by the idea that this year we were hearing that there were way more new business reviews than in previous years to start the year. And that was really inspired by a few factors, according to people I've spoken to. One is the fact that I think in previous years, the ongoing issues in the economy and the kind of, unstable at times government has caused some hesitancy in terms of ad spend recently. And I think this year, I think marketers are feeling just confident in at least the fact that they understand what kind of how this government works, how the economy kind of is generally. It's still not a great economy, but they now kind of understand where they are. And they also understand AI more now, and they understand a few more growing trends better than they did a few years ago. So that's one cause. The other cause is there's a lot of disruption in the holding company space. Obviously, the Omnicom IPG merger causing, they're figuring out the structure of the new company, they're obviously not going to be able to keep every client that both companies had, right? And so they're being, from my sources, I'm being told they're being very judicious in who they're keeping, who they're prioritizing. That means there's going to be a lot of mid to small size type clients that are going to be just looking for new agency partners naturally in the new year.
Interesting. I mean, you say this so, demure, but like those are three huge things. I wrote a bit last year about the introduction of the tariffs out of the Trump presidency, and we have seen so much instability around that conversation and recent changes even with, the judicial system blocking those and then working around. And then you mentioned AI. Workflows have changed completely in like the course of a year. And then you mentioned mergers. Of course, the new Omnicom is like the biggest mega beast that's ever come into this industry. So, I mean, those are three huge factors that have occurred like just in last year.
Yeah.
So everything you're saying makes total sense why we would be seeing such a new and crazy new business marketplace compared to previous years. Is that all resounding? Is that sounding
Yeah.
good?
No, you got it right. And I think, it's an industry that's used to a slower pace of change. And I think that's the other reason why this article was very important to our readers is that it's all happening so quick that you have to stay informed and understand what your competitors are doing.
Informed. I know a place for that. Um, So, across these conversations that you had with experts and people in these new business conversations, I'm first wondering, I'm not just going to ask you for the trends, boring. I'm first wondering if you heard any like advice or client needs that made you think, huh, that's not necessarily what I see from agencies,
Mhm.
even though clients are asking for it.
Yeah, I think one thing that I don't know if it made the final cut, but it was this idea of clients are looking at agencies to be even more of a partner than I think agencies are used to in the past decade. Meaning, they're not just like hiring them to do marketing. There's so much going on that they're looking at their agencies and saying, are you doing research in this subject? Are you understanding, which types of tools I should be using?" And that's not really I think that's the original idea of what ad agencies were supposed to be, like when they were first formed. And I think over the years that hasn't been as much of the case. And now we're kind of reverting back to this like more partner like need from clients, but not, I don't think a lot of agencies are ready for that level of, thinking. And I think that's why you're seeing the agencies that are finding success have that level of thinking up top and have that kind of client like relationship, that kind of account service type, ability that, not every agency is great at. So that was one. And then the other one was just the idea that like out of home, right? Like out of home was being pitched specifically or being like brought out from creative pitches, like creative remits. A lot of times out of home is kind of just an execution of a larger campaign. But we're hearing clients hiring specific out of home specialists just for that one thing. And I think it just shows like clients are really just like looking at everything as like, how can I find the most specific type of help that I need while also kind of having maybe a general agency somewhere else.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I wonder if they both maybe go hand in hand a little bit because if I'm wanting my agency partner to be my source of everything, my consultant across X, Y, and Z thing that I'm doing, but then at the same time, I want an agency that is so good at out of home that that's all they eat, sleep, and breathe.
Mhm.
Are those things going together, or am I now like expanding my agency roster to have, a team for every which thing that I might want?
It's kind of like ironic because they're heading more towards a roster model generally, like clients are, but that doesn't mean the budgets are there, right? So the budgets are going down, but they're also hiring more agencies for their rosters. That means the spend is getting, split even more than agencies would like. And I think I've heard from a lot of agencies that they're just declining so many pitches because yeah, there's more you know, pitches happening, but the opportunities aren't as good because the price isn't as good. So yeah, the roster model I think is becoming the popular model of I'll have one creative agency in the middle, and then I'll have like, my specialist agency surrounding it. Or maybe I'll have a roster of like three or four similar type agencies, and then I'll kind of like plug them in where it makes sense at a holiday campaign or, a different cultural moment, a social buzzy thing, right? So those are the
Yeah.
two kind of roster models that are like becoming popular.
So it's kind of like you want your one main agency that gives me everything, and then a bunch of little partners that are going to be great, but kind of funnel up through that main partner.
Right.
It's making me wonder. I've heard for a long time from clients that all they want is easy, easy breezy, and complexity is the last thing they want. This is why we've heard of agencies like WPP doing so much rebranding and reorging because they want it to be easy for their clients to understand. And what you're describing to me sounds complex.
Yeah.
So like what's going on there?
Yeah, I think, that was my same question as I was like talking to people. And it may sound complex, but really I think it depends on what type of business you are, right? If you're an Estee Lauder consolidating all your media under WPP, which they just did, that probably makes a lot more sense, right? If you're a smaller, maybe mid-sized client and you need, you have different types of needs. Maybe you don't always need an always on type of agency. Maybe you just need an agency that can do one or two campaigns a year. Maybe the roster model makes sense for you, right? So It really depends on what stage are you as a brand. But at the same time, I think marketers are under pressure more and more. And I think it's harder to commit to one agency, right? Because you're saying this is my ride or die, right? And a lot of times you want different opinions, you want different voices in the room. And I think marketers are just understanding that that works better sometimes for them. And it also provides a more consultative type feel, I think, if you can tap different agencies for different things.
Interesting. So I'm wondering now, what makes an agency really pop in the new business market? They're all pitching the
Yeah.
big client that they want. You said like maybe they want an out of home specialist, but is it enough to say like we're the best out of home agency in the world? World's best burger, world's best coffee. I'm imagining that's not enough. What's really making agencies stand out?
Yeah, I think it's two things. Like, there's always going to be specialists, right? And I think if that's what you want to do, that's great. There's always a cap on that, right? Like, if you want to be the best experiential agency in the world, that's great. If you want to be the best out of home agency in the world, that's great. But there's a lot less opportunities when you're specializing, right? So I would say you could do two things right now. I think, I spoke to a lot of consultants who said there's a lot of creative agencies that clients are looking for them to lead with a social idea in their creative pitches or creative work. I spoke to one consultant who said most creative agencies don't even know what that means, and they're still leading with a 30-second spot idea. And what that basically means is, instead of coming up with a good TV spot that then funnels into, maybe some social post that you get from that spot, clients want you to understand what's happening in social, use what's happening in social to inform your larger campaign. That's a big shift that it seems obvious, I think, for like normal consumers that use social media every day, but that's a big shift in how like marketers are thinking and how agencies need to think. Because not a lot of agencies were like started that way, and not a lot of agencies really have that kind of mindset, right? So, I
Mm.
spoke to one agency actually after the story came out who said they were traditional creative shop, and in the past year or two, they changed their portfolio that now 80% of their AORs are social AORs because that's where they're seeing the shift. So I think if you want to really stand out right now, you better have like some sort of social strategy that's unique enough and differentiated from what everyone else is doing.
That makes sense because TV
Right.
moves slow.
As you
And
know.
maybe that used to be a big chunk of the pie of where advertising was going, but as that pie shifts, also social moves much faster and there are fewer like deadlines and partners and more just like let's get this turned around and jump on this trend now and get it out there. So it makes sense that'd be a big shift and it would be what brands are wanting. What was the other thing you were going to bring up?
No, I was going to bring up this idea of like an AI integration partner, right? So I
Ooh.
wrote a story last year about clients want agencies that are going to help them become self sufficient, meaning, yeah, brands are building in house agencies and all that, right? But beyond that, they want an agency that can not only use AI in their own work, but actually explain it to them and maybe teach them some things on how to integrate their different AI solutions because there's so many AI tools now out there. Every company is dealing with the same problem. Like, what's the most efficient way for me to build out my AI system? And is it the most up to date, as things continue to progress, right? Agencies, that's something you can do a consulting fee on. If you build your own tech, you can probably charge clients for it if it's differentiated enough. So I think that's another space we're seeing agencies find a lot of success. Known as an agency that has been finding a lot of success in that field. Brand tech is another one. So it's like that's something that I think if agencies really start to think about how do I build revenue from this, you'll definitely find like suitors for that.
Yeah. When I was reading your article, this part actually jumped out at me because we've been seeing for over a year now that big holdco agencies, well, all agencies, but particularly the holdco agencies, have been investing in proprietary AI tech. And they want clients to come to them because they have these great tools that they'll use on behalf of clients. But you're saying that the clients want help bringing some of those tools in-house and building their own tools and building self-sufficiency. That seems like not the same thing. So is this like different? And are those investments that those agencies were making not what brands are looking for?
I would say it varies, right? Like, I think what the holdcos are doing, it can be that, right? Like a big client could go to WP and say, "I want you to help me build something internally." But really, what the holdcos find like more success in is basically building the entire ecosystem for the client and having it in their you know, business. Right? That just like how holding companies operate. I think if you're an independent agency, you have the ability that you don't maybe you're not as precious as about keeping things in house the whole time. So I think that's just the different models. But no, I think WPP earlier, I think it was last year or maybe the beginning of this year, they launched a small mid to mid-sized AI solution for like small mid-sized businesses, and that's meant to be something like that where they can like take WPP Open and put it in their own like company internally. So we're even seeing the big holdcos try to adapt to this.
Are there any like red flags you're hearing about? Don't do this in your pitch. Brands are not responding to X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think the biggest red flag so far is if you're not socially, culturally aware. I think that's becoming a big turnoff for clients. I think right now, transparency is a big thing. I know you just did that podcast with Ewan. That's coming.
Yes, go back last week. What are media rebates? Take a listen.
Exactly. That's coming up in a lot of pitches right now, right? Like clients are way more concerned about transparency. So,
What are they looking for? What are you hearing in the new business marketplace? Clients are actually asking agencies on in terms of transparency that we can follow up on from last week.
well, it's mostly right now, what is principal media buying, and am I being screwed over? And what does this actually mean? And how should I think about it? I do think there's, as much as we've reported on it and the whole industry has been reporting on it lately, and principal media buying is still a big confusing point for a lot of marketers because there is a lot of jargon, terminologies, and ways of doing principal media buying. It's like while the definition is straightforward, there's a lot of different ways to that it occurs within holding companies. So I think agencies, if you have a media practice, you have to be ready for those questions and pitches, whether you're independent or a large holdco.
Interesting. So, yes, last week we heard about what those things are. And if you don't know, go listen. And now we're hearing it's actually being asked and happening in the real world. So, that's an interesting bit of progress. Before a couple of wrap up questions, any other red flags or general do's and don'ts for agencies looking to win in the new business marketplace right now?
Yeah, look, AI search is the other big thing right now. Everyone's trying to figure out AI search and as it evolves, what does it mean? Agencies that try to come across as they know the all the answers, I think, a lot of clients are calling BS on. I think the better approach right now is here's some of the answers we know now, but these are still the question marks in the space, but here's the plan for the future. I think is a better way to approach it. Especially it's just a growing space, right? And I keep hearing this idea of can you measure the entire funnel of like if you're launching an experiential activation and it has a social component to it and you're combining PR with it, that also leads into AI.
Mm,
Like, how can you measure those four pillars and marry it together? It's like this. It's like a concept that I hear coming up a lot. That clients are just like trying to figure out. Um,
interesting.
yeah,
Well, and measurement frameworks and
mhm,
being able to prove in kind of tangible terms and not just these kind of amorphous numbers and KPIs that have been historically recounted.
exactly,
That seems like maybe that's a core piece of what you're saying.
exactly right. Yeah.
My last question for you, we've been talking very agency forward, very agency oriented. But if I'm a CMO and I'm about to enter a review process and I'm feeling overwhelmed by it, what's one piece of advice you would give that I should keep in mind as that CMO?
Don't make the pitch too long. I think, I think 4-week pitches do just as well. I think a lot of marketers are using AI search to find agencies. Maybe try that. Yeah, I think just know what you're looking for from the beginning, right? Are you trying to build a roster or are you looking for one lead creative agency? I think a lot of times we hear about pitches that have halfway through the pitch, they kind of change up the rules or they'll be like, we're going to do one more round, right? And then it ends up being a few different agencies. And look, you're free to make that decision. But the more you decide up front, the less headache you'll have throughout the pitch.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate your time and your expertise today. So,
Yeah,
again, thanks for coming
it's fine.
on.
Thanks.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you did, please follow Ad Age and like this video wherever you're watching right now. I'd like to thank my guest, Brian Bonilla, and I'd like to thank you for watching. This is Ad Age Insider. I'm Parker Heron. Enjoy your day.